Nobelity did look at the world's problems through the eyes of some very smart people, filmed in quite a number of countries around the world. Here I am in Calcutta, India at the Muharram, the Shia festival of Ashura. You can see that I fit right in. Christy calls this photo the human Q-tip. This was shortly after the American invasion of Iraq, and you might think that, being a white-haired American in a politically charged environment like this would not be a great idea, but in fact, check out this guy's shirt. If you're looking for a big opportunity, seek out a big problem. And that's pretty much what we've been doing ever since. We've been seeking out big problems and simple solutions to go with them. There were 9 Nobel laureates in Nobelity. Everyone is actually, if you go around the circle, everyone is smarter than the one before. It just keeps going like that. It's like an M.C. Escher drawing of brilliance. And in the middle is the 9th of the laureates that I interviewed for the film. That's Wangari Maathai of Kenya and the Greenbelt movement. I was really delighted when Wangari invited me to come to Kenya to plant trees with the Greenbelt movement. It was a tremendous experience for me. But I also wanted to plant trees at a school while I was there. And I was very fortunate, I feel very fortunate now, I didn't know how lucky I was at the time, to be taken to the St. Joseph Mahiga Primary School. Like a lot of other rural schools in Africa, this one had no water, no electricity, mud floors, slat walls with wind and rain coming through. And despite all that, the motto written at the top of every blackboard was, "Hard work pays." Well, this was a little bit of an inspirational moment for me, and the first partner project of the Nobelity Project, was to build a water system at this school. I'd been planting trees, and I had a vested interest in seeing that tree live, also in seeing these kids live. So building that water system got us more interested in the idea of solutions, and that led to the One Piece at a Time, our next film, which looks at the possibility of providing basic rights for every child. Philip Berber, who we heard speak a few minutes ago, is quite wonderful in the film. And I'd have to also recognize Caroline Boudreau of the Miracle Foundation, who's seated right here, who is also quite wonderful in that film. So while I was filming One Piece at a Time, I went back to Kenya, went back to Mahiga to celebrate the changes that our partnership with this community had brought about. That started with clean water. And by the way, I'll have to say, this is a rainwater system with UV purification, and I drink the water from this system, and it's the only water pretty much I drink in Africa, including on those rare occasions I get to stay in a really nice 4-star hotel somewhere. Wouldn't think about drinking that water, but the water at our school I will drink, and it's quite tasty, as a matter of fact. We wanted to purify the water with UV, and that prompted us to bring in electricity, and that led to new classrooms, and one of those became a computer lab. So in 3 years, here's the OLPCs, 1 laptop per child. In 3 years, St. Joseph Mahiga Primary School transformed from basically a failing school to one of the top-rated schools in the district. And we really had to ask ourselves, we hadn't spent very much money. Most of the money was raised by a 13-year-old kid here in Austin, Texas, who raised the money for that water system as part of his mitzvah project. And we hadn't spent so much money, and all these great things had happened. And so we wanted to know why these great things had happened, and the conclusion we came to was it really was about this community. It was about parents who cared. They saw this as their big opportunity. The students saw this as their big chance, and great things came from it. It wasn't what we did, it was what they did. But here's the trick. We all know education shouldn't end after the 8th grade, which is what primary school means in Kenya. With no secondary school in the area, we were giving these kids just enough education to want more. We had a nice mix, about half girls, half boys, but what's the opportunity for a kid with an 8th grade education, no high school to go to, and no job to go to as well? Mahiga's lack of a high school is not unusual. In the past decade, most of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa have instituted, this is all part of the Millennium Development Goals, have instituted free primary school education. Now, a few years go by, and this has created a huge gap in the number of students who come out of elementary or out of primary school and the number of spaces that are available to go into a secondary school. Pretty logical. There's also other parts of this gap. There's a huge gap in the number of qualified teachers for secondary school. That's why when I was on one of my trips to Ethiopia with Glimmer of Hope, I was really happy to see a teachers' college that they'd built there and got to meet basically an army of teachers they were building in Ethiopia, which is my kind of army. There's also a gap in the amount of money and the affordability of parents to be able to pay secondary tuition for their students, because primary school is free and secondary is not. And then there's another gap, and this is one of the worst of all, and that's a distance gap. The distance between secondary schools, it can be 5 kilometers, but more often it's 10 kilometers or 20 kilometers. In some areas, it's 40 kilometers. There's only so far a kid can walk each day round trip to get to school. So the idea is, let's reduce the gap. Let's reduce all of those gaps. We never really intended to build a high school. But when I went back and was celebrating these changes with this big community, and we had a giant crowd there, and the head of the education district stood up and said, we've decided, we're so inspired by this community that we want to operate a high school here. We're just looking for someone to build it, help build it. And I looked around with a big smile on my face, and after a couple of seconds, I realized, oh, they're talking about me. So, well, this is really another great stroke of fortune for me and for the Nobility Project, I think. Infrastructure is always a challenge. It is particularly a challenge in Kenya. It would be great if the Kenyan government could step up and build about 1,000 high schools this year, but they are already spending, the Kenyan government is already spending 26% of their total tax revenue on education. It's a huge amount of money, a huge percentage, 26% on education. It puts them almost as the #1 spender on education in the world as a percentage of all their tax revenue. Really impressive. However, if you look at the amount of money that the Kenyan government spends per student, they're number 121 out of 125 leading nations in the world. They're almost at the bottom of the list. There's only one explanation. It has 2 parts to it. They don't have enough government revenue, and they have too many kids. They're in this zone right now where they can't do it all on their own, and we looked around and we thought, here's an opportunity to partner with this great community, try to build a model school. Think about all the components that would be required for a really good high school, to do it on a budget that could be replicated, as Philip was talking about, in other places, and to do it with public designs, working with Architecture for Humanity, so that others who wanted to build our buildings wouldn't have to go back and do the same architectural work and the same engineering. They could use our designs and they could build a school on that budget as well. So once we decided to build a high school, we realized that every year it took us to build it, we were going to lose another class of 8th graders. And that didn't seem too tolerable, so we came up with the ridiculous goal of building a high school in 1 year. So let me show you a design here. This is the rainwater court. It's a building I'd been dreaming about since the primary school water system. We didn't have enough money at the primary school side, but it is, as you can see, it's a basketball, it's a multi-sport court, full court, has a huge roof. All the yellow components are related to water. It's a rainwater catchment system. There's 30,000 liters of purified, solar-powered, UV-purified drinking water. It has a stage built into the back wall, so it becomes a performance space, a community meeting space. This design for the rainwater court won Nike's International Game Changers Award. It's a design competition to unite athletics and social change. That award came with a designer from Architecture for Humanity, an architect to live in the community and help build the structure, and coincidentally and very helpfully, $60,000 to build the building. We broke ground on this building last March 2010, and here is the rainwater court today. And every bit as beautiful as the drawing, I must say. You can see the tanks a little better from this opposite angle here. And one thing missing from that panel is a solar panel. From that picture is a solar panel on the roof, which powers all the water purification and the pressurization for it. By the way, the water systems in the rainwater court are just one of the 5 water systems at the school now. Every building has its own independent solar-powered water, and every time it rains 2 inches, we get 100,000 liters of purified water. And we were very happy to hear our community partner, Joseph Mutangu, say this trip, unprompted, yeah, we've got so much water now, we're thinking about bottling and selling it. We're going to call it Sky Water. So pretty happy about that. Well, of course, you need classrooms. Here's a design for a 2-story, 8-classroom block. We poured the concrete the same day last March that we broke ground on the other building. And here's a little section of that building today with our first Form 1 and Form 2 classes. This was taken actually at our grand opening in October. Some parts of the school were still open at that point. As we move forward with additional buildings, you got to have a good kitchen. We've moved from the open stone fires with smoke that was really wiping out the eyes of the cooks and wiping out the respiratory systems of the cooks to these high-efficiency energy stoves that were created by the Aga Khan Foundation. They're really great, very happy about that. We also added science labs, we added computer labs, and we have a new library. There's Christy with Susan, the librarian at the school. Add it all up, We spent $280,000 building 7 buildings for a high school. Capacity is 320 students, which we expect to be at probably a lot sooner than when we started. The new term just started. We're working up 1 year. Each year we add a new grade. And this year we have Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, and we have 109 students in the school headed to a capacity of 300. So a lot of people in Austin, Texas were very supportive of this. I like Philip talking about how their base had started in Austin. We had a lot of great support from Austin, Texas, but it's also begun to spread out in the same way. And in fact, one of our great donors of the library is from Barcelona, Spain, a foundation from Spain. But I'd like to invite Christy Pipkin to come up here and talk about the really important part of the work.
So, kind of heavy lifting on the
Yes, that'd be me.
This is the why of what we do. These are 8th grade girls and me together. And I love these kids. But these kids were the ones facing the wall. They were facing the wall they couldn't scale. And there are tens of thousands of children all over the world that are looking at this situation right now. And so they can't do it for themselves. Their nations can't do it for them. And the only reason they're in this situation is that they're poor. So by the chance of their birth, these girls have a pretty bleak future. And I also run the Nobility in Schools program here in the U.S. And what I find, no matter how hard these kids are struggling in school, what I find when I talk to them about our work, that what they ask about is how can I connect? Not just what can I do. They do that. They do book drives and bake sales, and they make that effort. But what they really want is relationship. And when I start thinking about that, they want relationship, yes, to maybe these kids across the world, but kind of what they want is to connect with where they stand on the globe. They want to feel connected to what's going on in the world. And when I really think about that and about relationship, and I realize that it's the foundation of what we do. And it's the foundation of what we all do, because it's the social part of social innovation. I mean, what we do is create relationship, and the rest follows. Now, Turk and I being married, I think we bring a particular kind of commitment to our work that maybe jumps a little deeper there. I mean, we have that sense of responsibility and commitment to our donors and our stakeholders. But really, when it gets down to it, the why of what we do is about love. And truly, I do believe the power of love can change the world. And I know that sounds sappy and idealistic, but when you think about it, it's really our only currency. It's the only thing we truly have to give. I mean, because the rest of it's just a swap meet. The money just changes pockets. The ideas just float around. But when it comes down to what we have to give, what is our commitment, it comes down to love. And much like Philip was saying, heart and head. What would be bold would be if we ran our organizations and our governments and our businesses from a place of love, that our heads and our hearts were equally valued. And that may be, stated in our mission, but I'm feeling grateful that we're actually able to do it day to day.
Love, a very bold idea. So I just want to wrap it up. Thank you very much, Christy. You're very hard to follow. I just want to wrap it up by saying that now that the school is open and completed, we are kind of moving to the next phase. So we started talking about the fact that we were filmmakers. I didn't really know while we were building the school whether I was making a movie about building a school or whether I was building a school as a set for a movie. Sometimes I couldn't tell the difference. But we have a new film coming out called Building Hope, the story of Mahiga Hope High School. It'll be playing soon at a film festival near you. If you're in Austin, Texas, at a film festival very near you, very soon. Those announcements haven't been made yet, though. But I hope that all of you will have a chance to get to see Building Hope, and we're hoping that the film is going to motivate individuals and businesses and NGOs and governments to realize the need for stressing secondary education, for supporting this kind of work. We've launched a new Kenya Schools Fund, which is going to continue to build classrooms, libraries, and water systems at schools across Kenya. And all of our work is online at nobility.org. We're easy to find. So thank you very much, everybody.